Hi folks, in this short video I'm gonna explain what we did in Thursday's class on VRGInClassExample01 gallery database. This database that I'm gonna use now, which is right here, VRGInClass done in class, is already posted on our class website. If you go to weeks 13 and 12, you'll see that VRG database in class is already posted. So I'm going to be using that and explaining the queries that we did in the class. Alright, so let's get this going. Alright, so let me make sure we fit everything into the screen right here. Now, if you remember, this VRG database has a bunch of queries in it. If you look at these queries 2 through 7, these are data definition queries. These are the queries that we ran on class on Tuesday of this past week. That will be April 4th. And I'm going to now explain the queries that we've run on April the 6th. So those are these queries. And then, of course, the two quizzes that we did on that day, 5 and 6. Let's look at the queries first, and then we'll go and recreate these queries so that you can see how they are created, so that you can watch this video and then stop and look at each step. I'll try to explain as much as possible, but I also want to keep the video short so that I can post it very quickly and it won't take long. Query 1. So the query 1 basically has last name, first name, and the count of artists. So what is the last name, first name? These are, if you look at the relationship section of this database, in this database we do have customers, and the customers each customer has interest in certain artists. Here are the artist names. If you look at the customer interest table, you can right click on any point in this, go to table design, and I'll say yes. And then once I get to table design, I can look at the view of this table. You see that there's an artist ID and customer ID. So that means this specific artist and these 17, 18, 19 are in the interest set of customer 1000. And you can continue and you can see that this whole table has 28 entries, total of 28. That means 28 cases I have a customer showing some interest in some artist. So let me close this because we will run. By the way, it's a good idea to keep things closed when you write your queries, especially tables, because sometimes the queries may not run if the table is already open. So it's always a good idea to keep only one query open or one table open at any point in time, and then make it a habit to just close things. Alright, so what else we have? So I'm going to work on this side. So I'm going to see which customers has interest in artists, and I want to count for customers how many artists they're interested in. So let's do that query. Alright, so query 1. So I'm going to recreate that. So what are the steps? Now, the first step is to create, click on create, and then you're going to do it query in design view. Now, in the design view, I'd like to know which customers are interested in which artist. If I want only the customer IDs, all I need is customer artist interest table. Add that, close this for now. So what then I can do is, let me make this a bit bigger. I can pick the customer ID, and then I can pick the artist ID. So what I want to do is, I want to group by customer ID in this right here, and then count how many artists they're interested in. And since all I want is customer ID, this table is enough. So to be able to do the group by statement, I need to click on this icon right here. It's called totals icon. It says totals in query result. As soon as I do that, you notice that totals row shows up. It says group by group by. If you notice group by group by, I'm grouping by artist ID and customer ID. If you just run this, you're going to end up with those 28 rows because you're grouping both customer ID and artist ID. So let me go to design again. So what I want to do is group by customer ID and then count. Use the available functions here. You see there are available functions, and you're going to use pretty much most of these functions in this assignment. There's a variance function, there's a count function, max, min, average, and sum. So I'm going to now use the count function. So what it will do is it will count the artist ID and group by customer ID. If I run this query now, you'll see I'll get the customer ID and then number of count of artist ID. Okay, so this is the alias for this field. So these are the number of artists each of my customers, not all of them, but customers who have interest in any artist are interested. You notice this is 8, and I know I have 10 customers. That means 2 customers have not shown any interest in any of my artists. Alright, so this is the idea. Now, if I were to go ahead and then also want to add to this query customers' names, let me go to design view of my query. By the way, let's look at the SQL quickly. If you look at the SQL of this query, it's basically a simple select customer ID and count customer artist and name this as, these are all default values. And then what I'm doing is, here is the group by. So I'm group by customer ID. You notice when access QBE, query by example, this query builder, when it writes its queries, you notice it always qualifies each attribute with the table name so that there is no ambiguity, right? Of course, I can get rid of these because I'm using only a single table, so there is really no ambiguity in this. But for now, I'm just going to keep it as it is, and you can always remove the table names if it's a single table query. Alright, so let me go back to design view now. So now, suppose I want to add customer's name. I don't just want the ID, but I want to name. So in order to add the name, what I need to do is I need to go ahead and basically insert that table. So, and there you can click on this icon right here, or you can right click anywhere on this canvas and just choose show table. And in this case, I'm going to add customer table. Alright, and close this. Again, the same thing. Now I'm allowed to pick last name. I'm going to drop it right there. And then first name, I'm going to drop it there. I'm going to move customer ID all the way to the beginning. So now you notice what it did. It says group by customer ID, group by first name, group by last name. It's going to give me the exact same query, but this time it will also display the corresponding customer's name first and last. If I run this, this is what I get, right? Now, so I get this result. Go back. So you can look at the query. The query now has a join function, SQL view. Let's look at the SQL view. You see now it has an inner join, customer artist. So you're inner joining customer table and customer artist interaction table. And how do I joining those two tables? Basically the primary key of customer table with the foreign key of customer ID in customer artist interaction table. So run this. So you get these results. The next step is to, of course, you can anytime you can go hide a column. You can choose not to show a column. Use it in the group by statement, but not show it. If you run this, you see now first name, last name, count artist is shown. That's a possibility. But let's show this for now. It doesn't make a big difference. What I want to next do is I want to be able to see also those customers in this table, customer table, that do not have any artists that they are interested in, or at least expressed interest in. So to do that, I need to change my join type, and one way to do that is using this relationship right here. Double click on this. I'm just double clicking on the relationship and pick the first default option is what we call an inner join. The next one is one of the outer joins. The first one, this one is the customer table. It says, read this carefully. It says include all records from customer and only those from customer artist. So that means if I want to see all the records from customer table, even if the customer has no interest in any of the artists, this is what it will do. But let's run this now. Let's look at the counts. Right? So now you notice the customer ID is not picked because this customer has no ID in the table this customer ID is coming from, and you notice the counts are 0 for these two customers. This is good, but the next step is, why don't I see the customer ID for those customers? The reason is because I picked the customer ID from customer artist interaction table. I can actually change this table right here to customer table. Since the customer all customers do have an ID in the customer table, even those two customers with no interest in any artist. Let me sort this quickly. Or smallest to largest. See, those two zeros will also have their ID show up. So it all depends on which table you're picking it from. So if the table you pick from doesn't have that value, then it was going to display as null value. So it's this query. Now let's look at the SQL view. If you look at the SQL view, it says select customer ID, first name, last name, and count customer ID. You notice I'm counting the artist ID in the customer artist interaction table, and I name this. And then same join, but this time I have left join. Actually, this is a left outer join, but you can actually drop that outer keyword. If you just type it, it's gonna work the same way, but you are allowed to drop it. Alright, so let's go back to SQL view. So what is going on here? What are we counting? So what we are counting is basically getting this table, interaction table, and then go ahead and count. Let's go ahead and remove all of this group by statement for now. I'm just gonna remove that. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut that. And then go ahead also get rid of this count part. And let's see what result I get if I just do a left outer join. So let's see what we get. So what we get is, oh, I'm picking up from the wrong table, I suppose. Let me fix my query a little bit. Customer data, customer ID, I'm going to also show the artist ID. Yeah, Access sometimes does these weird things. No, that's not what I wanted to do. So what I wanted to do is, my Control V and Control C does not work here. So right there, actually, I did make a mistake as well. So let me fix that quickly. Right click, not Control C. Paste. I'm going to also paste this, and I want to pick the artist ID. Let me just type it. Alright, let's run this. Okay. So it does that problem because I've made changes. If you notice, for two customers, remember, there are 28 cases where customers had shown interest, and there are two customers with no interest. This is right there, one of them, Susan Boo, and the next one is Linda Johnson. You see that for these two customers, the value is empty. Okay, so that means they really don't have anybody they are interested in, right? So if I want to just pick these customers, all I need to do is go to this query in the join, but remember outer join, and all I need to do is just say, give me the artist ID, where artist ID, you can write the criteria here, you can say is null. So this is going to find me the customers who, okay, I think this is what it is. So the totals row, that's what's creating problems. So let's run this. See, now I'm gonna get those two customers. So these are two customers that do not have any interest in any artist. So I can again get rid of these two. I'm just not displaying them, but they are there. Run this. So this is basically a solution to your quiz 6. Basically, I'm using a join, outer join. Let's look at this outer join. I'm using an outer join. You notice this arrow, that's an outer join. So I'm getting all the customers, and for each customer I'm finding which artist they are interested in. If the artist is empty, is null, that means the customer has not shown me any interest. So then I can get rid of first name and last name, and then just display first name, last name, and get rid of customer ID and artist ID. Right? So that's my quiz 5. Now I can do the same thing with a subquery, and that is basically our quiz 5 solution. In this case, if you go to SQL, you have a subquery. You're saying select customer first name, last name from customer table, and check to see whether this customer's name is not in any of the customers that are in customer artist interaction table. If somebody's ID doesn't show up in that table, that means they have not shown any interest in any of the artists. So this is the subquery method. Just look at this solution. I think it's pretty straightforward. If you go to design view of this, you'll notice that the subquery is written in the criteria window. It says not, and then there is a SQL statement there. It's hard to see, but there is a full SQL statement that's copied and pasted there. Yeah, this makes it a little bit harder to see the whole thing, but let me try to make it. Alright. Suppose it doesn't fit in one screen. I can probably change it, but for now you can just look at it yourselves. Alright, so that's quiz 5 solution. Let me close that. Alright, let's look at some of these. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I need to do. And the next thing we can, once we count these are the same things we have already done. There are different versions of this. So what I'm going to next do is count the number of artists, and then only display the artists where only the customers that do have interest in more than a certain number of artists. So I'm going to now go ahead and this query 1 and change this. So instead of doing the is null once, I'm going to get rid of this, and let me add my group by statement back. Design group by. So I'm going to group by this attribute, group by this attribute, group by this, and then count this. Oh, not max, count. And then run this. This is what I get. Let me go to SQL design view. Let me display these attributes. Alright, so I'm displaying all, counting this. We have done this before. So now what I'm going to do is, out of these customers, I want to show only the customers who have more than or equal to 4. So all I have to do is just put the criteria here, say greater than, equal to 4. So it's basically, as soon as you do this, what it does is basically it shows me the customers who have interest in more than or equal to 4. And then if you look at the SQL view, what it does is basically it adds this having statement. Now, at this point, what I want to do is, you notice it puts a lot of these parentheses right here, and that is to be sure that things don't have trouble, but you can actually get rid of most of these parentheses. Some of the basic ones can stay, but most of these parentheses, table qualifications, if attribute is coming from a single table, can actually be removed. Your queries will work. So that's why QB is good, helpful, but on the other hand, it creates somewhat messier SQL queries. Alright, I think this should explain. If you have any questions, do send me an email or ask in the class. Alright, thanks a lot.